Hey guys, it's Joe here. Today we're going to be doing a quick tutorial on if statements in C. These allow you to do conditional program execution. So basically, you want your computer to react to the world around it, and you have to be able to do that somehow, so it doesn't end up just being a list of instructions that get run all at once. So we're just going to make a quick file, main.c, include stdio.h, so we can print some things if we want. Going to make our main function like we covered in the first tutorial. Okay, so if you're confused about anything here, go look at my first tutorial. It's more or less introduced there. I wouldn't say explained quite yet. So what we want to do, so we want to be able to, want the program to do different things depending on different inputs, I guess, makes sense. So like just for example here, so let's say we want int a to equal 1, okay? And let's say we want to print out, we'll make two integers, int a equals 1 and int b equals 0. So what we want to do, let's just make a program that prints out if b is less than a, equal to a, or greater than a. So we're going to write out the print statements. Well, let's not do that yet. So first thing we want to do, if we want to see if b is less than a, how do we do that? So we're going to introduce here an if statement. So you just type if, and then you need these parentheses, and then in here you can put a expression. So in this case we're going to say is b less than a. So this little left arrow thing means is b less than a. So you compare them. If it is, if that evaluates to true, then we want to say a is less than, oh, that's backwards. B is less than a. So that's basically just going to check if b is less than a. If it is, print out this string. Now we can do another option. So basically we can check one condition. So the first condition is b is less than a. If we want to check another, we say else, then if. So else if a is greater, or a is less than b. So now we want to check the other case where a is less than b. So we basically took this one, flipped it around. So in this case we'll say printf a is less than b. So now when we run this, it'll check if b is less than a. If it is, it'll print this one. Otherwise, it'll check this case. Is a less than b? If it is, it'll print this. And then finally, you have the default case. So this last else, oops, this last else will only get run, all the code in this little, in between these curly brackets, will only get run if neither of these things were true. So we'll say a is equal to b. And the reason we know it's equal is because obviously if b is not less than equal than a, and a is not less than b, then we know the only option is that they're equal. So if b isn't less than a, and a isn't less than b, then they have to be equal. So in this case, looking at it, we know 0 is less than 1. So if we compile and run this program, we should expect this one to run, and we can test that here. So if we compile this program, little typo. In my main function, I called this argc. It should be argv. I'm sure many people will tell me that. So yeah, now it compiles, now that I fixed that. So now if I run t1, which is the name of the program I just made, I get b is less than a. And that's exactly what we expected. B is less than a. Notice how none of these got run because only this first condition evaluated true. So now let's flip this. Let's make a equal to minus 100. Now A is definitely less than B, because minus 100 is less than 0. So now when we come through here, we predict that it won't run this one, because now B is greater than A, not less than. But we look at this one, A is less than B. Well, this should run because minus 100 is less than 0. So to test that, we do the same thing again. We compile the program, and we run it. Now we get A is less than B. That's exactly what we expected. This one here ran. Notice again how this last else block did not run, because that is the default case if neither of the things above evaluated to true. So now, just to show all the cases, we're going to make A equal to 0. Now I won't tell you what I think will happen here, because I think you should be able to guess. If not, I'll explain it after. So let's just compile that and see how that goes. A is equal to B. Can you see why? So A equals 0 and B equals 0. So think about this. If we go to the first one, is B less than A? No, it's not. Is A less than B? No, it's not. So we go to the default case, where we just print this. So we know neither is greater than the other, therefore they must be the same. So an important thing to note here is this is not the only structure you can do. So every if-else block or control structure needs to start with an if. You don't have to have the else if here. Oops, did that again. All else ifs are optional, and so are these elses. So let's just show that first, actually. So if we have just this, then something will only ever get printed out if B is less than A. So if we just run this the same, they're equal, nothing gets printed. And that's expected because they're equal. So this doesn't evaluate to true. B is not less than A, so don't print. But then we have nothing else in the program, so nothing else happens. But if we make B less than A, now it'll run. See? So it's important to realize that you don't have to have the else, and you don't have to have the else if. We can have just an else and skip the else if. And now we'll make them equal again. So this should say, is B less than A? No, it's not. Okay, then just print this other piece. Oops. Skipping the else if, because there is no else if. Alternatively, we could skip the else and have just an else if. And we'll say else if A is greater than B. And we're going to say, I predict that this will not run. So, in our original example, we had an else here, right here, that would have caught every case other than the two above. But in this time, we're not catching it. We're not putting an else there. So the first one will be evaluated. It won't be true, so it'll skip to the next one. That'll be evaluated. That also won't be true, so it'll skip that. But then nothing will happen because there's no else block here. Yeah, so we ran it, nothing happened, as expected. Because none of these conditions were met, so none of the code was run. So it's important to remember that, here, we'll do a quick review here. An if-else block must always start with an if. Then after that, you can have, if you want, you can put an else and whatever you want in there. Or if you want, you can have any number of else ifs. And then you could tack an else on there if you want to. So let's do a quick example. We'll say number equals 1 if number equals 1, print the number entered was 1. Else if number equals 2, the number entered was 2. Then we'll do the same thing for this second else statement. This is just demonstrating that you can have more than one else if. And then in the else we'll say the number entered was greater than 3 or less than 1. So we're saying if the number is 1, print this first thing. If the number is 2, print the second thing. If the number is 3, print this third thing. And finally, if it was none of those 3, print this thing. So if we make the number equal to 2, I think we can all predict what would happen. We evaluate this. It's not true. So we go to this. Is that true? It is true. So we run this statement here. And then everything else gets skipped. It's not even checked. We just jump to this part of the program right here. So we'll just demonstrate that real quick. The number entered was 2. So that's exactly what we expected. Number's 2. And then to show what will happen if we have -1, might be a good idea to predict what's going to happen here. Do number -1. Think about it. And if we compile and run that, the number entered was greater than 3 or less than 1. And that makes sense because -1 is definitely less than 1. Okay, I don't know if that was helpful again. Kind of a quick introduction. To really learn how to program, you just gotta keep bashing your head against the wall and watching tutorials and trying things. So if you have any questions, put them in the comments. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Appreciate it.